Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the heart of Olympus itself. No passport, no visa, just your imagination and the soft glow of this bedtime story. The forge of Hephaestus crackles and smoulders in the corner of your mind, and you can feel the iron tang of molten metal in your throat as the god of fire toils away. His hammer rises and falls, ringing out a rhythm that sounds almost like a lullaby if you squint your ears just right. You're surrounded by the hiss of steam and the glow of embers, and there's a faint scent of charred cedar in the air, cozy right. But don't get too comfortable, the forge is a dangerous place even in the realm of sleep. You probably won't survive this if you lean too close to the anvil's edge. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge deeper into the forge and it feels like you're walking into the core of a volcano, walls of black stone, glowing veins of magma, and the heavy breath of the bellows in your ears. Sparks fly in slow motion, each one a fleeting star. You see Hephaestus hunched over his workbench, muscles rippling beneath soot-streaked skin. His hair is an unruly halo of dark curls and his eyes sharp, clever, a little sad, never leave the molten metal he's coaxing into shape. He's not beautiful, not in the polished golden way that Apollo or Hermes might be. He's beauty of a different breed, raw, fierce, a god shaped by the fires he commands. His leg is twisted, a permanent souvenir from a childhood that was anything but gentle. But his hands are sure and quick moving like the rhythm of a song only he can hear. You watch him forge the world's wonders armor that sings with an inner light, shields that could stop the sun itself, and delicate jewelry that whispers of secret promises. Historians still argue whether Hephaestus's forge was more workshop or temple, but you can feel the reverence in every hammer stroke. There's no worship here, only craft, and that's something even the gods respect. It's lonely work, though. You see it in the set of his shoulders, the way he wipes sweat from his brow and glances at the empty doorway. Hephaestus is the god of creation, but his own heart is a quiet forge, smouldering but seldom touched by the fires of love. Yet tonight, even here, in this crucible of heat and iron, there's a flicker of something different. A rustle of silk, a shimmer of gold, a scent that cuts through the smell of soot and sparks like a breath of sea air. You turn, and there she is, Aphrodite, goddess of beauty, gliding into the forge with all the effortless grace of a swan drifting across a moonlit pond. Her hair is the colour of polished copper, her skin glowing with a light that seems to come from within. She's the sea foam goddess, the laughter of the waves and the ache in every mortal heart. And yet here she is in the smoky gloom of Hephaestus's domain, looking at him with eyes that are equal parts curiosity and something softer, something that might be kindness, or pity, or both. You wonder just for a moment what she sees in him. Not the twisted leg, not the sweat-streaked arms, but the mind behind the forge. The god who can create anything except, perhaps, a love that's truly his. Aphrodite's voice is as soft as rose petals, but it cuts through the air like a chisel on marble. She asks him what he's making tonight, and he shows her a delicate necklace of golden links, each one shaped like a tiny flame. You can almost hear it singing a soft, bright hum that tugs at something deep in your chest. Hephaestus doesn't say much, but his eyes are alive in the glow of the forge. He tells her how each link must be perfect or the whole thing is worthless. It's a lesson in craft, but it sounds an awful lot like a lesson in love too. Aphrodite smiles, and for a heartbeat you see something fragile and real, an unspoken question hanging between them like the glow of the forge itself. Do you see me even as I am? Do you see what I could be if I let you close enough? But the moment passes and Aphrodite turns away, her laughter bright and echoing off the black stone walls. She's goddess of desire, but her heart is a shifting tide impossible to hold for long. You follow her out of the forge, feeling the heat of Hephaestus's gaze at your back. There's longing there and something else resolved maybe, or just the quiet fury of a man who knows he'll never be enough for the goddess who drifts like moonlight through his dreams. Yet the forge glows on. You can feel the weight of it in your bones, the ache of creation, the spark of hope, the stubborn refusal to be anything but exactly who you are. And even though you're just a visitor here, drifting in and out of the glow, you carry that spark with you as you step back into the shadows. You leave the forge behind, but the warmth of it clings to you like a second skin. It's a different kind of heat now, the burn of questions you can't quite answer, and the bright flicker of curiosity about how this god came to be. You've heard bits of the story, of course, how Hephaestus was cast down from Olympus, how he rose from the depths to become the master of fire and metal. But tonight you're going to walk every step of that journey feeling the echoes of his fall and the weight of the world he forged for himself. Hephaestus wasn't born with the grace of Apollo or the wit of Hermes. He arrived in the world with a cry that rattled the heights of Olympus, a child of Zeus and Hera, or maybe just of Hera alone, depending on which storyteller you ask. Historians still argue whether his father was the king of the gods, or if Hera in her pride and fury birthed him alone to prove she could. Either way, it didn't matter much to the child himself. He was a baby of smoke and embers, but he didn't shine like the others. His foot was twisted, his cries harsh and uneven. In the polished halls of Olympus, where every god was a masterpiece of beauty and strength, Hephaestus was a flaw, an imperfection that marred the marble perfection of the divine family. Hera, the queen of Olympus, looked at him and saw shame. She took that tiny body still warm from her own and flung him from the heights of the sky. You wince at the thought, a mother's rejection so absolute it echoes down the centuries. You probably wouldn't survive the heartbreak of that moment if you were in his place, a newborn god cast into nothingness, before he even had a chance to prove himself. Down he fell through the clouds and the empty air, a streak of divine light hurtling toward the mortal world. He struck the sea with a sound like the world's last thunderclap, and the waves swallowed him whole. But the sea is as much a cradle as it is a grave. Hephaestus didn't die. He drifted beneath the waves, the salt stinging his baby skin, and was lifted up by Thetis and Eurynome, two gentle goddesses who took pity on the child the gods had rejected. They wrapped him in seaweed and sang to him in voices soft as the tide cradling him in their hidden cave at the bottom of the world. For 9 years he lived there, safe in the shadows of the deep. The ocean rocked him like a cradle, and he learned the ways of the world by listening to the stories the waves told in their endless sighing. He watched the light dance on the ceiling of the cave, flickering like the sparks he would one day command. It's a strange childhood, you think, but maybe not so lonely as it seems. Thetis and Eurynome gave him love where Olympus had given him only cold stares. They taught him that strength isn't always in the perfection of the body. It's in the fire you keep alive even when the world tries to snuff it out. Hephaestus was no prince of the sea, no shining Apollo of the waves, but he found his own kind of magic there. He learned to shape the gifts of the deep coral and pearl shells and silver. His little hands, still chubby with baby fat, began to shape wonders. Tiny trinkets, at first bracelets of shell, delicate chains of silver filaments, but each one more perfect than the last. And even in the depths he dreamed of something more, of fire, of the secret language of metal and stone. He felt it calling to him in the pulse of the earth beneath the sea, a rhythm older than the gods themselves. By the time he was grown still small, still bent at the foot, but with a fire in his chest that no wave could drown, he knew what he had to do. He left the sea cave with a heart full of thunder, and the whisper of a wave still echoing in his ears. He climbed back to the land of mortals, finding a place where the earth cracked open, and the fire of the world spilled out in molten rivers. There, in the shadow of volcanoes and the sigh of steam vents, he built his first forge. The air was alive with the roar of the earth's heart, and Hephaestus answered with the steady beat of his hammer. He shaped iron like a sculptor shapes clay, coaxing out the soul of the metal with each strike. He learned the secrets of bronze and gold, how to make them sing beneath his fingers. The world watched. Mortal kings heard whispers of the divine smith who lived in the shadow of the mountains, and they came with offerings. Rich pelts, jars of honey prayers whispered on the wind. They begged for weapons and trinkets for a piece of the power they saw in his fire-lit eyes. Hephaestus gave them what they asked for: swords that could drink the light of the sun shields that turned back even the bravest spear. But each gift was a piece of his heart hammered into shape, with the memory of a mother who threw him away, and a home he could never truly claim. And still he worked. Still he dreamed of the day he would stand on Olympus, not as a cast-off, but as a creator, as a god. You feel the heat of his forge in your own bones, and you can almost hear the hiss of molten metal cooling into shape. It's a lonely symphony, but it's his, and maybe you think that's enough. As you step back from the roar of the volcano, you can't help but wonder what it would be like to live a life forged in fire and rejection, where every breath is a promise to keep going no matter who tries to throw you down. You slip away from the molten glow of the volcano's mouth and back into the quiet hum of the forge. Hephaestus stands there, arms folded, eyes steady, as he surveys the world he's built with hammer and flame. It's not Olympus, not yet, but it's his domain, his temple of creation, where the anvil's song drowns out the laughter of those who once cast him aside. Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, was more than a master craftsman. He was the secret heart of Olympus's splendour. The armour that gleamed on Ares' shoulders, the jewellery that dripped from Aphrodite's slender neck, the tools that made even Zeus's thunderbolts crackle and roar, each one had passed through Hephaestus's hands. You can almost hear the chorus of hammer strikes, each blow echoing with the weight of divine legacy. The ancient poets called him the smith of the gods, and rightly so. His workshop was a palace of wonders. You step inside and feel your breath catch in your throat. Golden automata, tiny figures of shimmering bronze that walked and spoke like living beings, shuffle across the floor, their delicate feet clinking like chimes. Historians still argue whether these were true automatons or just illusions spun from divine metal, but either way they move with uncanny purpose. One automaton shaped like a lion prowls the shadows, its eyes glinting with mischievous light as it watches you. Beyond them, Hephaestus's tools are a testament to the marriage of form and function. Tongs and chisels that seem to sing in the hand anvils, etched with runes that flicker when the forge is stoked, and furnaces that glow like miniature suns. He shapes the very elements, pulling them apart and weaving them together like the threads of fate itself. It's not just weapons and armour either. Hephaestus's touch brings beauty as much as it brings strength. He crafts jewellery so delicate it seems spun from moonlight bracelets that wrap around your wrist like ivy necklaces that catch the faintest gleam of a lover's gaze. These are not trinkets but talismans of divine power. They glow faintly in the forge's dim light, whispering promises you can't quite hear. Hephaestus himself moves through this wonderland of metal and fire, with the surety of a dancer, his limp barely noticeable when he's in his element. There's something mesmerizing about it, the way he shifts his weight, balancing each blow of the hammer with a grace that belies the brute force of the forge. You're caught between the roar of the flames and the calm of his concentration, lulled into a kind of trance. And then he turns to you, holding out a small dagger. Its blade ripples like water, and the hilt is shaped like a serpent's scales of emerald and gold. "This is for the mortal kings," he says, his voice low and even. a weapon to remind them that even the mightiest blade begins as nothing but raw metal. You take it, and for a moment you can feel the weight of 1,000 stories in your hand. The wars it might be used in, the secrets it might reveal, the blood it might spill. Hephaestus doesn't shy away from these truths. He knows that creation is as much about destruction as it is about beauty. You're not the only one to marvel at his work. In the corners of the forge, the other gods drift in and out like shadows. Apollo, sun-bright and smiling, commissions a lyre of silver strings. Athena, wise and watchful, requests a shield that will not crack under even the most relentless siege. Each of them leaves with a piece of Hephaestus's genius, and he stands at the centre of it all, unloved by many, but needed by all. You catch a flicker of something in his eyes when he watches them go, a wistfulness maybe, or just the quiet knowledge that his hands shape the tools of their glory, yet his own heart is left to cool in the dark. A quirky detail floats to the surface of your thoughts. Ancient tales say that Hephaestus even crafted golden chairs that could trap anyone who sat in them, his mischievous way of turning art into armour, beauty into defence. A secret laugh in every gilded curve. You wonder if he made those chairs just for fun, or if he was trying to build a prison for the things he couldn't control, like love, like longing, like the laughter of a goddess who never stayed. Outside the forge, the world spins on gods and mortals tangled in their endless dramas, but here inside this place of creation, there is only the steady pulse of the anvil, the hush of breath, as the metal bends to Hephaestus's will. Historians still debate whether the forge was a real place, or just a metaphor for the creative soul, a symbol of the artist who shapes worlds from fire and pain. But as you watch Hephaestus lift the hammer once more, you know that it's both a temple and a truth, a workshop and a heart that beats to its own quiet music. You step back, careful not to trip over the prowling automaton lion, and let the heat of the forge fade from your skin. Outside, the night is cool and dark, and the stars seem to echo the glimmer of gold and bronze you've left behind. But you carry a bit of that fire with you, tucked away like a secret charm in your heart. And as you drift towards sleep, you can almost hear the voice of Hephaestus, whispering in the hiss of cooling metal. Even in the dark, there is beauty waiting to be forged. You step into a new dreamscape, one woven not from the clang of hammers, but from the soft sigh of waves and the glitter of sea foam. Here the air is cool and scented with salt, the gentle hush of the tide weaving a lullaby that calls to something deep inside you. In this tranquil place, another story begins to take shape, a story that gleams with beauty and longing, as delicate and shimmering as the goddess who first rose from the sea, Aphrodite. The name itself tastes sweet on your tongue like honeyed wine. You see her now emerging from the foam, her hair, a cascade of molten gold that ripples in the morning light. She is laughter and desire made flesh, a vision of impossible perfection that sends shivers through both mortal and divine hearts alike. Historians still argue whether she was born from the union of Zeus and Dione, or sprung fully formed from the sea, the daughter of Uranus's severed form cast down in a violent birth of waves and blood. But here in this moonlit reverie, you don't need to choose. You simply watch her as she steps from the foam water, beading on her skin like the finest pearls, her every movement echoing the soft rhythm of the tide. Aphrodite's arrival on Olympus is a moment of quiet upheaval. The other gods pause to watch her, their conversations faltering, their laughter growing thin as she glides past. She doesn't have to speak. Her presence alone is enough to tilt the balance of power, to make even the mightiest heart skip a beat. You can feel that power in the air around her, the way the world seems to hold its breath as she passes. Her eyes are the colour of the sea at dawn, restless, shifting impossibly deep. She knows what she is, and she wears that knowledge like a crown. As she takes her place among the gods, the whispers begin. Zeus, thunder-eyed and calculating, sees her as a balm for old grudges, a way to soothe the bitter squabbles of his divine children. Hera, queen of Olympus, narrows her eyes and measures Aphrodite's beauty against the cold steel of her own power. And Ares, god of war with blood still fresh on his hands, feels a hunger he can barely name. Aphrodite smiles at them all, her laughter soft and silvery. She knows that she is a prize, a promise, a disruption in the calm order of Olympus. She's not just a goddess of love, she is the very embodiment of desire, the siren call that even the gods cannot ignore. She walks through the halls of Olympus like a song you can't stop humming each step, a promise of something sweet and forbidden. Her laughter's a warm breeze, her sigh a flicker of moonlight on the water. You watch her move, and for a moment you forget everything else. The clamour of the forge, the weight of the hammer, the ache of a twisted leg. In her presence there is only the soft glow of possibility. But love, you realise, is never as simple as it seems. Even for a goddess, especially for a goddess. Aphrodite's beauty is a gift and a curse. She cannot help but draw others to her, mortals and gods alike, each one desperate to taste the honey of her touch, to drown in the depths of her gaze. Yet for all her power, for all the hearts that beat a little faster when she enters the room, there is a loneliness in her smile, a secret knowledge that no matter how many eyes watch her, no matter how many hands reach for her, no one can truly hold her. In a quirky twist, ancient poets claimed that Aphrodite's favourite flower was the myrtle, a blossom often overlooked, its simple beauty hidden among the brambles. They said it was her secret, her way of holding something tender and unassuming, in a world that demanded constant radiance. You wonder if Hephaestus knew that secret when he first saw her, if he understood that beneath the shimmer of desire lay something fragile and real, a heart as prone to cracks as any mortal's. The forge of Hephaestus is far away now, but his presence lingers in the shadows of your mind. You can almost see him pausing in his work to glance up as Aphrodite enters the room, the light of his forge flickering in her eyes. Hephaestus, who can shape the hardest metal with a single blow, must have felt something melt in him when he saw her. And she, Aphrodite, born of foam and longing, must have felt the flicker of curiosity when she saw the smith god's quiet strength. Perhaps it was the contrast that drew her, the way his world was all fire and hammer and the steady beat of creation, so different from her own realm of sighs and longing glances. But desire is a tricky thing. It flickers and twists, never quite still. Even now you can feel the tension building in the quiet corners of Olympus, a hush before the storm of tangled hearts and whispered promises. You stand there in the soft glow of moonlight and sea foam, and you know that this is only the beginning. Aphrodite's story is a dance of shadows and light, of passion and betrayal of beauty, and the quiet ache of wanting something that can never be fully held. And as you let the salt-laced breeze wash over your skin, you wonder, what is it about beauty that draws us so close even when we know it can burn? What is it about longing that makes even the gods feel the sharp edge of hope? You don't have the answers, but you carry the questions with you like a charm, a flicker of wonder that glows softly in the quiet spaces of your mind. Aphrodite's arrival at Olympus is a dance of delicate power and unspoken bargains. She is the tide's daughter, washing over ancient stone with a softness that belies her strength. The gods watch her with a mix of awe and trepidation, for beauty like hers is a double-edged blade, wounding as much as it enchants. And standing in the shadows, a forge-stained god watches too. Hephaestus, with soot still streaked across his brow, and the memory of his mother's rejection echoing in his bones, sees Aphrodite not just as a goddess of love, but as a promise. A chance, maybe, to forge something new from the scraps of his past. But it's Zeus who sees the possibility most clearly. The king of the gods, ever the master of politics and petty grievances, has grown tired of the endless squabbles that ripple through Olympus like cracks in marble. Ares and Apollo, Hermes and Dionysus, each vying for Aphrodite's laughter, each stoking the fires of rivalry that threaten to boil over, Zeus ever practical hatches a plan. A marriage to quiet the storms, to turn Aphrodite's dangerous allure into a balm for the fractious divine family. And who better to anchor that beauty than Hephaestus, the one god who creates not destroys? You can almost hear the amused snort of the fates as Zeus calls for Hephaestus, the lame god of the forge who has never tasted the sweetness of a lover's sigh, summoned to wed the goddess of desire herself. Historians still argue whether Zeus's motives were kindness or cunning. Some say he hoped to reward Hephaestus's loyalty. Others whisper it was simply a way to keep the goddess's passion safely contained. But you know better. You know that even in the realms of the gods, hearts are not so easily managed. Hephaestus listens as Zeus speaks the words echoing in the quiet forge like the ring of a hammer on iron. You watch the flicker of disbelief in the smith god's eyes, the way his broad shoulders tense with a hope so raw it almost hurts to see. Aphrodite his bride, the thought is a spark that flares bright and then dims, banked by a lifetime of caution. Aphrodite herself stands silent as Zeus's decree falls over them like a veil. She does not protest, perhaps she knows better than to argue with the king of the gods. Or perhaps she's curious, her bright eyes flickering with the possibilities of a match that no one else would dare imagine. The wedding of Hephaestus and Aphrodite is unlike any other in the halls of Olympus. You stand at the edge of the feast watching the gods gather, each more beautiful, more radiant than the next, their laughter like the music of silver bells. Ambrosia flows in rivers of gold and the air is heavy with the scent of crushed myrtle and warm honey. But in the midst of this divine celebration there is a quiet note of unease. Aphrodite, clad in a gown of shimmering sea silk, moves with practiced grace, her smile as bright as the dawn. Yet in the depths of her eyes you catch a flicker of uncertainty, a question that no mortal or god can answer for her. Hephaestus, for his part, is no stranger to being the outsider. He stands at her side, his shoulders square, his chin lifted. His limp is still there, but he does not try to hide it. He knows who he is, the god of the forge, the maker of wonders, the one who shapes the very bones of the earth. If Aphrodite will have him, he will give her everything he has, every spark, every breath, every beat of his stubborn heart. The toasts that night are awkward, the laughter forced. Even the other gods can't quite believe this union, this clash of fire and sea foam. Ares, dark-eyed and brooding in the corner, watches with a gaze that could cut stone. Apollo's laughter rings hollow, and Hera's smile is a mask of brittle politeness. But the vows are spoken, and the feast stretches long into the night. You watch as Hephaestus takes Aphrodite's hand, their fingers tangling in a promise neither fully understands. There is a hush in the air, a stillness that feels like the breath before a storm. A quirky tidbit, some ancient sources claim that during the wedding feast, Hephaestus crafted a golden throne for Aphrodite, inlaid with tiny dolphins and sea flowers. A seat fit for the queen of desire, forged in the fires of his own heart. You can almost see it, the soft gleam of the metal, the way it cradles her like the tide cradles the moon. And in that moment you wonder if maybe, just maybe, there is a kind of beauty in this strange union. A meeting of opposites that might forge something stronger than either could be alone. Historians still debate whether Aphrodite ever truly loved Hephaestus, or if her heart always belonged to the war god who watched her from the shadows. But love, you realize, is not always a matter of the heart, it is also a matter of choice of the vows we speak, and the promises we keep even when the world around us whispers that it cannot last. As the wedding feast fades into the soft hum of night, you feel the forge of Hephaestus in your bones once more. That steady, stubborn beat of creation, the quiet flame that refuses to be snuffed out. And you know that no matter how this marriage of sparks and sea foam might end, It will burn bright enough to light the dreams of mortals and gods alike. The wedding is over, but the echoes of that night linger in the air like the last notes of a song. You wander through the halls of Olympus, where the laughter of the gods still clings to the marble, and the scent of crushed myrtle weaves through the golden light. But beyond the feasting and the formal vows, there is another story waiting to unfold a story, written in the quiet spaces of the newlyweds' home. You slip into their private chambers as though stepping across a threshold into a different world. The walls here are not the cool marble of Olympus, but warm with the glow of hearth fires and the soft flicker of oil lamps. Hephaestus's forge has followed him even here, a corner of the room where an anvil sits in patient silence waiting for the song of the hammer. Aphrodite's presence is a different kind of fire. She fills the room with the scent of rose petals and sea spray, her laughter echoing in the soft rustle of silk sheets and the hush of water in the bath she so loves. You watch her drift from one corner to another, her fingertips trailing over the cool metal of Hephaestus's creations, her gaze lingering on the delicate shapes of jewellery and the careful precision of his craft. This house of theirs is a palace of contrasts. You can see it in the way the light bends around them, Aphrodite soft and radiant, shimmering like moonlight on the sea. Hephaestus solid and warm, his rough hands steady even in the quiet of night. There is tenderness here, but also an awkwardness, like two dancers learning steps they've never tried before. Aphrodite watches Hephaestus with a gentle curiosity, as if she's trying to understand the man beneath the soot and the iron. Hephaestus, for his part, moves with careful grace, his every gesture a silent promise of devotion, yet you can't help but feel the space between them. It's there in the way Aphrodite's gaze drifts toward the window, toward the night sky where Ares's war cry waits like a drumbeat. It's there in the way Hephaestus's hands pause over his anvil, as though he's forging more than just metal, he's forging a hope that might never take shape. Historians still argue whether these private chambers were built by Hephaestus himself or gifted by Zeus as a gesture of political peace. Some say the walls were inlaid with coral and pearl to please the sea-born goddess. Others claim Hephaestus wove delicate iron filigree into the very bones of the house, a subtle reminder that beauty and strength are not so far apart. But you see more than just the walls, you see the way Aphrodite lingers by the hearth, her fingers brushing over a necklace of hammered gold, as if she's weighing its worth against the weight of her own heart. You see the way Hephaestus watches her, when she's not looking, his eyes soft with the longing he doesn't dare voice. Aphrodite tries to fill the house with laughter and music, inviting the Graces and the Muses to sing their sweet songs and fill the air with light. But even the softest song cannot chase away the tension that flickers in the shadows. A quirky tidbit ancient myths claim that Aphrodite's dove-drawn chariot would sometimes glide past the window of this house, a reminder that the goddess of love was never truly tethered to any one place or any one heart, and Hephaestus knows it. He knows that the goddess who fills his bed with warmth and his nights with sighs also carries the scent of salt and storm in her hair, a restlessness that no forge can contain. Yet still he tries. He polishes the jewellery he made for her until it gleams like captured starlight, hoping that in its reflection she might see something worth staying for. You wonder what it must feel like to love a goddess of desire when you are a god of creation. To know that your hands can shape the hardest metal, but that no craft can shape a heart that longs for something else. Yet there is a quiet bravery in Hephaestus's devotion. He does not demand her love, does not chain her to his forge. He simply offers what he has: the patient rhythm of the hammer, the glow of the fire, the endless possibilities of creation. And Aphrodite, for all her longing and her secret glances toward the horizons, seems to find some comfort in that. She sits by the hearth and watches him work, her eyes softening when he lifts his head to meet her gaze. She laughs when the golden automata shuffle by with clumsy grace, and Hephaestus smiles a quiet smile that flickers and fades like the glow of the forge. Historians still debate whether this marriage was ever more than a bargain and alliance of beauty and craft to keep the peace in Olympus. But you see something more in these quiet moments, a fragile tenderness, a spark that might yet glow brighter than even the forger's heart. As you step back from the warmth of their home, you can almost hear the whisper of the anvil, the hush of the sea, the soft beat of two hearts trying to find a rhythm that might carry them through the endless dance of love and longing. You carry that quiet hope with you as you drift into the darkness of the night, your own heart warmed by the glow of their flickering hearth. The house of Hephaestus and Aphrodite glows softly in the night, a gentle light in the endless swirl of divine intrigues and mortal longings. But even here in this quiet refuge there are undercurrents you can't ignore, ripples of doubt, whispers of desire that can't be contained within the warm walls of their home. You watch them in the hush of evening, the flicker of the hearth painting shadows across their faces. Hephaestus bends over his anvil, lost in the steady rhythm of his work. Sparks fly like fireflies, and the air shimmers with the promise of creation. He doesn't look up often, his focus is absolute, a devotion so complete it almost makes you ache. Aphrodite drifts through the room like a song half remembered. Her hair catches the lamplight, turning it to molten gold, and her eyes, those eyes that could drown an empire, flicker with 1,000 unspoken thoughts. She tries to fill the space with her laughter, her music, the soft brush of her fingers against Hephaestus's shoulder as she passes. But you can feel the distance between them as real as the line of the anvil's edge. Hephaestus speaks little, his words as deliberate as the strokes of his hammer. He shows her his creation's necklaces that shimmer like starlight goblets, carved with scenes of gods and monsters, delicate filigree that seems spun from moonlight. Each piece is a testament to his skill and offering to a goddess who might never truly see him. Aphrodite accepts them with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. She wears his gifts as if they are armour, each jewel a shield against the questions that flicker in the corners of her mind. And you wonder, is it enough to be adorned in beauty when the heart still yearns for something else? In the corners of the room, Hephaestus's golden automatons move with quiet purpose, creatures of bronze and silver that seem almost alive. They dance and whirl, their delicate limbs shimmering in the forge light. A quirky tale says he made them to keep him company in the lonely hours of the night, each one a spark of his genius and a silent witness to the ache of his heart. Historians still argue whether these automata were simply marvels of engineering or true companions imbued with a spark of something almost human. But you can see the way Hephaestus watches them, a faint smile flickering at the edges of his lips, as if in their measured movements he finds a kind of solace no mortal or goddess can offer. The palace around them is a testament to their uneasy union, a place of contrasts and quiet compromises. Aphrodite's touch softens the edges of Hephaestus's world. Fragrant flowers spill from golden vases, silken cushions soften the iron chairs, and the air hums with the soft music of her laughter. But even these small comforts cannot hide the weight that hangs between them. You see it most clearly in the nights when the forge grows cold and the songs fade to silence. Aphrodite lies awake. Her eyes turn to the window where the moonlight spills in soft and silver. She dreams of the sea, of the laughter of dolphins and the hush of the tide, of a world that moves with the restless rhythm of her own heart. And Hephaestus, ever the patient smith, lies beside her, with his hands folded on his chest, his breath steady and deep. He does not reach for her, he knows better than to grasp too tightly at something that was never meant to be held. Instead, he dreams of the forge, of the endless dance of creation, of the quiet pride in shaping something that will outlast even the fickle passions of the gods. Ares, god of war, lurks at the edges of these dreams, dark-eyed and hungry, his laughter a low growl that vibrates in the night. You can almost see him in the shadows beyond the window, his gaze locked on the goddess who was never truly his to claim, yet always his to haunt. Historians still debate whether Ares and Aphrodite's affair had already begun in these early nights of her marriage, or if it was simply a spark waiting to ignite. But you can feel it there in the hush of the room, in the way Aphrodite's breath catches when she thinks no one is listening. Yet in this quiet tension there is a fragile beauty. You watch Hephaestus rise before dawn, the forge already warm with the promise of new creations. He does not demand her heart, does not chase away the shadows that gather in the corners. Instead, he works each hammer, strike a prayer, each glowing blade a vow to himself that he will keep creating no matter the cracks in his own heart. Aphrodite too finds her own kind of peace in these early mornings. She sits by the hearth, her fingers weaving garlands of myrtle, and rows her eyes soft as she watches the light dance on Hephaestus's shoulders. She knows he will never be the war god who makes her pulse race with danger, but in his quiet devotion she sees a kind of strength that even Ares's roar cannot match. And you drifting through this house of contrasts carry the weight of their unspoken truths like a cloak around your shoulders. You feel the hum of the forge in your bones, the shimmer of Aphrodite's laughter in your veins, and you wonder, what does it mean to love someone who cannot be yours, to offer everything you have even when you know it will never be enough? You don't have the answers, but you know this much: the forge glows on, and the goddess of beauty still walks its halls. And in that fragile dance of fire and longing there is a kind of hope that glimmers as bright as the golden sparks that rise from the anvil. In the quiet hours of the forge, where the hiss of quenching water and the soft glow of molten metal lull your thoughts into gentle ripples, you start to sense another presence, one that pulses with a restless warlike energy. Ares, god of war, is never far from the edge of the story, his shadow flickering at the corners of the forge's warm light. He lurks there in the flicker of Aphrodite's gaze when Hephaestus is turned away in the quickening of her breath, when the heavy tread of boots echoes down the marble halls. You feel it too, the quiet pull of danger, the heartbeat of battle thrumming like a distant drum. Ares is a creature of fire in his own way, but it is not the patient shaping flame of Hephaestus's forge. It is the wild blaze of conquest, the heat of bodies pressed together in the blood-soaked dance of war. And Aphrodite, who was born of the sea's gentle caress, finds herself drawn to that heat in ways she cannot explain. You watch them meet in stolen moments, a brush of fingertips in the dark, a glance that lingers a heartbeat too long. There is no tenderness in Ares's gaze, only hunger, like the edge of a blade or the gleam of a spear point catching the dawn. And yet, for all the softness of her smile, Aphrodite does not turn away. She drifts to him like a moth to a flame, knowing that it might burn her but unable to resist. A quirky detail in some of the oldest myths, Ares is said to have worn a cloak woven of the night itself, a mantle of shadow and moonlight that made him all the more alluring in the glow of Aphrodite's sea silk garments. Historians still argue whether that cloak was ever real, or just a metaphor for the darkness that always seems to follow the god of war. You can see the fascination in Aphrodite's eyes, a yearning for something wild and unshackled, so different from the steady devotion of Hephaestus. She loves the way Ares moves, the way he claims the space around him with a soldier's arrogance and a lover's need. In Ares's arms she feels not just desired, but devoured, wanted in a way that leaves no room for doubt. But Hephaestus? He's not blind to the whispers that swirl around his home like smoke. He sees the way Aphrodite's laughter grows softer when Ares is near, the way her eyes glow with a light that has nothing to do with the forge's warm embers. And though he says nothing, though he works with the same patient precision as always, you can feel the ache that throbs in his chest with each measured breath. It's a strange thing to stand at the edge of this triangle to watch the way they circle each other like celestial bodies caught in a dance of gravity and want. Aphrodite luminous and aching, Hephaestus steady and wounded, Ares all restless, fire and thunder. Historians still debate whether Aphrodite's affair with Ares was an open secret or a carefully guarded tryst. Some stories claim they met in the shadowy corners of Olympus beneath the ever-blooming myrtle trees, where even the breeze seemed to hush in deference to their passion. Others say they stole away to mortal lands, their laughter echoing in the fields of battle where Ares reigned supreme. But here in this quiet moment you see the truth of it in Aphrodite's eyes, a longing that Hephaestus's gentle hands cannot quell, a hunger that only Ares's fierce embrace can satisfy. And yet there is a kind of tragedy woven through this tapestry of desire, a silent question that shivers in the air like the forge's dying embers. What does it mean to be loved for your body but not your soul? To be desired for your beauty but never truly seen for the heart that beats beneath the skin? Hephaestus, for all his quiet strength, knows that question all too well. You watch him at the forge, his brow furrowed, the clang of his hammer, a metronome for the ache in his chest. He shapes wonders for the gods' jewels that catch the light like starlight weapons that sing of war and glory, but even the greatest craftsman cannot shape a heart that does not wish to be held. And still he works. Still he creates. For in creation there is hope, a spark that refuses to be snuffed out by the laughter of the gods, or the soft sighs of a goddess who was never his to claim. Aphrodite, for her part, is caught between two worlds, the quiet glow of Hephaestus's devotion and the roaring fire of Ares's touch. She cannot choose, or perhaps she chooses them both in her own way, a dance of desire that leaves her heart forever wandering. You stand in the doorway of this forge of longing and you feel the weight of their choices pressing against your skin. You wonder for a moment what it would be like to be Aphrodite, torn between the warmth of the hearth and the heat of the battlefield, between the safety of devotion and the wild promise of passion. And as you drift deeper into the glow of the forge, you know that the story is only beginning. The fire has been lit and the embers of desire glow brighter with each passing breath. The gods may laugh, but you softly, secretly, you carry their tangled longing with you into the darkness of the night. The glow of the forge fades as you drift into a darker corner of the story, a place where even the steady beat of Hephaestus's hammer can't drown out the whispers of betrayal. You feel it in the way the air tightens, the hush of the forge replaced by the soft sigh of secrets slipping through the cracks. Aphrodite's laughter still echoes in the halls of Olympus, sweet and bright like the ringing of a bell, but now there's something else in her voice, a secret edge, a note of something hidden. You watch her move through the marble corridors, her footsteps light as sea foam, and you know she is no longer content with the careful balance of hearth and forge. She craves the wildness of Ares's embrace, the way his warlike passion devours her doubts and feeds her longing. Hephaestus, ever the patient craftsman, sees the flicker of that secret fire in her eyes. He sees the way her smiles falter when she thinks no one is watching, the way she lingers too long in doorways, where Ares's laughter rumbles like distant thunder. And though he says nothing, though he turns back to the anvil and the rhythm of creation, there is a hardness in his gaze, a quiet fury building like a storm behind calm eyes. A quirky detail from the old tales, it was said that the very air around Aphrodite seemed to shimmer with desire, a subtle perfume of roses and sea salt that clung to her skin and wove a spell of longing around even the coldest hearts. Some claimed that this was her truest power, the ability to make you want even when you know the wanting will only leave you hollow. You feel the weight of that power as you stand in the shadows of the forge, the hush of the anvil replaced by the soft pulse of secrets. You see the lover's tryst, Ares's bronze-armoured bulk pressed close to Aphrodite's soft form, his laughter low and wicked as he claims the goddess for himself. You see the way her eyes close, the way her sigh trembles between them like the hush of the waves on a moonlit shore. Historians still argue whether their affair was passion or rebellion, a defiance of the match Zeus decreed, or simply the inevitable clash of two hearts too wild to be caged. But in the glow of the forge's last embers, you see the truth that no scholar's scroll can capture the simple searing ache of wanting what was never meant to be yours. Hephaestus watches from the shadows, his heart a forge that burns hotter than any anvil. He does not rage or shout he is a craftsman, and even in betrayal his mind turns to creation. But this time he does not craft beauty, he crafts a snare. You watch him at the workbench, his fingers deft and sure as he weaves the finest golden threads into a net so delicate it shimmers like dawnlight. Each strand a promise, each link a silent vow, I will see, and they will know. The forge hums with a different kind of fire tonight, a slow, deliberate heat that tastes of revenge and heartbreak. Hephaestus's trap is not just a net, it is a testament to the quiet power of a mind that sees every flaw, every weakness, and turns it into a weapon. He works through the night, the hush of the forge broken only by the soft hiss of cooling metal and the low murmur of his thoughts. Aphrodite and Ares, tangled in their secret passion, have no idea what waits for them. They think themselves safe in the hush of midnight, their laughter swallowed by the soft night air. But you see the net gleam in the forge light, each strand a glint of gold and fury. Historians still debate whether Hephaestus's cunning was born of heartbreak or pride, whether he wove that net to shame the goddess who could never truly be his, or to prove once and for all that even the most delicate beauty can be ensnared. But you feel the answer in the hush of the forge both. It is the bitterness of a heart that loved too deeply, and the cold certainty of a craftsman who will not be mocked. When the net is finished, it hums with a soft, terrible power, a song of entrapment that only the one who made it can hear. Hephaestus lifts it with careful hands, the delicate strands catching the forge's glow like the last rays of the setting sun. And in that moment you see him not as the rejected son of Olympus, not as the lame god of the forge, but as a creator in full command of his power, dangerous, brilliant, unbreakable. You feel the tension in the air as he carries the net from the forge, each step a drumbeat of resolve. There is no hesitation in his gaze, no tremor in his hand. He knows what must be done. He knows that the goddess of desire and the god of war have played their game long enough. And you standing in the quiet glow of the dying embers can only watch as the trap is set, the snare of gold and heartbreak, waiting in the darkness like a promise. You know that the moment of reckoning is close, that the laughter of the gods will soon ring out over Olympus, and the lovers who thought themselves beyond consequence will find themselves caught in a web of their own making. But for now the forge is quiet, the net is ready, and in the hush of that moment you feel the weight of Hephaestus's resolve, a weight that hums in your bones, a silent vow that even the most fragile beauty cannot escape the truth of what it has sown. The forge is cold tonight, its fire banked and quiet, but you can still feel the pulse of Hephaestus's plan in the air, a thrumming note that shivers through the darkness like the promise of thunder. He moves with quiet purpose, each step measured, each breath a steady rhythm that echoes the beat of his heart. The golden net gleams in his hands, a delicate web of vengeance and heartbreak, and you know that this is no mere trick. It is the culmination of every slight, every insult, every glance that lingered too long on the goddess who would never be his. You watch as Hephaestus steps into the bedchamber of Aphrodite and Ares, the hush of the forge left behind in the still air of night. The lovers lie tangled in the soft glow of moonlight, their sighs low and urgent, their laughter a murmur that ripples like water over stone. They think themselves alone, hidden from the gaze of the world. But Hephaestus sees every secret touch, every stolen kiss, and he does not turn away. He says nothing as he casts the net across their entwined bodies, each golden thread falling with the finality of a smith's hammer. The net settles over them like a whisper, delicate and deadly, and in that moment time seems to hold its breath. Aphrodite gasps her laughter, turning to a soft cry as the threads tighten around her limbs. Ares's broad shoulders tense, his warrior's instincts flaring in the darkness, but the net holds fast, crafted by the hands of the only god who can shape even the smallest sliver of the divine into something unbreakable. Historians still argue whether this was an act of cruelty or a stroke of genius, a punishment for the goddess of love and the god of war, or a bitter lesson in the consequences of betrayal. But you feel the weight of it in the hush of the chamber, a moment of reckoning that no laughter can soften, no whispered apology can undo. The other gods gather, drawn by the soft glow of the net and the low murmurs of surprise. One by one they step into the room. Hermes, Apollo, Athena each face a mask of curiosity and unease. They watch the lovers trapped in their silken cage, their laughter faltering as they see the shame in Aphrodite's downcast eyes and the fury in Ares's clenched jaw. A quirky detail, ancient sources claim that even Poseidon, god of the sea, arrived to witness the scene. His trident casting shadows that flickered across the walls like the restless tides of his realm. Some whispered that he alone tried to speak in defense of the lovers, but the net was proof enough, and Hephaestus's silent fury was not to be denied. The laughter of the gods is soft at first, a ripple of amusement that builds into something sharper, a cruel chorus that echoes in the marble halls. They laugh at the goddess of love, tangled and humbled at the god of war, his pride as bound as his body. But in Hephaestus's eyes there is no laughter, only the quiet satisfaction of a craftsman whose work is complete. He stands at the foot of the bed, his broad shoulders outlined by the glow of the forge's last embers, and he does not gloat. He does not raise his voice or curse the lovers who betrayed him. Instead, he lets the net speak for him, a testament to the power of creation, the silent weight of a heart that has learned too well the art of being unbroken. Historians still debate whether Hephaestus forgave Aphrodite after that night, or if he turned his heart away from her forever. Some say he bargained with the other gods to release the lovers, his price, a measure of respect he had long been denied. Others claim he simply walked away, the forge's glow in his eyes, and the memory of betrayal burned into the steady rhythm of his hammer. You watch as he lifts the net at last, the golden threads falling away like the last notes of a song. Aphrodite and Ares rise from the bed, their cheeks flushed with more than just the heat of their passion. They do not meet Hephaestus's gaze, and you know that in that silence there is a deeper wound than any forge could ever heal. And yet, even as the laughter fades and the gods drift back to their own halls, you feel the quiet triumph in the forge's slow heartbeat. Hephaestus has shown them all that beauty can be trapped, that desire can be snared, and that even the goddess of love must bow to the steady hand of the craftsman. As you drift back from that room of tangled limbs and quiet shame, you wonder what it means to hold such power in your hands, to craft not just the weapons of war, but the very shape of fate itself. You wonder what it costs to love someone who sees your devotion as a cage, not a gift. But for now, the forge glows softly in the distance, its light a promise and a warning. Hephaestus will return to his anvil, his heart still steady, his hands still sure. And in that quiet you carry the memory of the golden net, each thread a lesson in the price of betrayal, each gleam a reminder that even the most delicate beauty can be bound by the fire of creation. The laughter of the gods fades into the quiet corridors of Olympus, leaving behind a hush that echoes in your bones. You slip from the bedchamber of shame into the cool night air, the forge's glow a distant memory. But the story is far from over. It lingers in the air like the faint scent of rose petals and iron, a promise of sparks yet to come. Aphrodite stands at the window, her hair a river of gold spilling over her bare shoulders. Her laughter is gone now, replaced by a soft sigh that seems to ripple through the night like a secret wave. You can see the flush in her cheeks, the tremor in her hands as she traces the delicate lines of her reflection in the polished bronze mirror. She is the goddess of love, but tonight she feels the weight of shame. A golden net woven not just of metal, but of every whispered promise she never meant to keep. Ares is gone, his warlike roar swallowed by the darkness. He will not face Hephaestus' steady gaze, will not meet the quiet judgment of the forge. Instead, he vanishes into the night, his armour clinking softly as he disappears into the silence. The god of war may know the thrill of battle, but in the forge's quiet triumph he has met a foe he cannot conquer. Hephaestus, for his part, does not linger to gloat. He leaves the bedchamber as silently as he entered, the net folded beneath his arm like a trophy he will never display. His face is calm, his steps measured, but you feel the weight of each breath he draws, the quiet ache of a heart that has learned too well the cost of devotion. Historians still debate what Hephaestus thought in those quiet hours after the trap was sprung. Some say he felt the bitter triumph of a man who has proven his worth, who has forced the gods themselves to witness the power of his craft. Others whisper that he felt only the hollow ache of a victory won at too high a price. But you see the truth in the way his shoulders square as he steps back into the forge. He is a creator, and he will not let even the sharpest sting of betrayal break the rhythm of his work. The forge is warm and waiting, the anvil humming softly like a heartbeat in the hush. Hephaestus moves through the glow with a steady grace, his hands sure and unhurried, as he shapes the molten metal into forms that shimmer and sing. There is no anger in his hammer strokes, no bitterness in the hiss of the quenching water, only the quiet certainty of a craftsman who knows that creation is its own kind of vengeance, a testament to the beauty and power that no betrayal can take away. You watch him work the sparks, rising in slow arcs of light that catch in the shadows of the forge. Each breath he draws seems to echo in the air a quiet prayer to the heart of the fire. In this moment he is not the cuckolded husband, not the god who was cast from Olympus as a child. He is simply Hephaestus, master of the forge, and that is enough. Aphrodite, meanwhile, lingers in the quiet of their home, her fingers tracing the edges of the gifts he made for her. Necklaces that shimmer like starlight bracelets, that catch the light of the forge and turn it to moonlight on her skin. She wears them still, though her laughter has grown softer, her smiles more fleeting. She knows that each piece is a question she cannot answer, a promise she was never ready to keep. A quirky tidbit, ancient stories claim that after the shame of the net, Aphrodite would often retreat to the sea, seeking solace in the gentle hush of the waves. There beneath the moon's silver gaze, she would let the salt wash away the sting of betrayal, her heart caught between the pull of the tide and the quiet glow of the forge. Hephaestus does not follow her. He lets her go, lets her wander the edges of Olympus and the endless blue of the sea. He knows that love cannot be forced, that the forge's fire can shape metal, but not the tides of the heart. Instead, he turns back to his work, the anvil's steady song a comfort against the silence she leaves behind. Historians still argue whether their marriage was ever more than a fragile truce, whether Aphrodite truly found a flicker of love for the god who shaped the world's wonders, or if she was always a tide that could never be held. But you feel the quiet truth in the hush of the forge that even in a marriage of convenience, there can be moments of real tenderness. Moments when the goddess of love sees the glow of the forge and the steady hands of the god who loves her, and feels something close to home. As you drift away from the forge's warm light, you carry with you the quiet dignity of Hephaestus's creation, the the way he shapes the world with each measured stroke of his hammer, the way he weaves beauty from the raw metal of heartbreak. You carry too the soft ache of Aphrodite's laughter, the shimmer of her tears in the moonlit quiet, and in that fragile space between creation and desire, between devotion and betrayal, you find a kind of peace. The forge glows on the goddess, drifts in and out like the tide, and the story continues, each heartbeat a promise, each breath a spark that refuses to be snuffed out. The forge glows softly as dawn begins to spill its golden light across Olympus. You feel the hush in the air, that delicate balance between night and day, between longing and acceptance. It's a quiet hour, the kind of hour when even the gods seem to pause and catch their breath. Hephaestus moves through the forge with a calm that belies the storm of betrayal he has weathered. His hands are steady, each movement measured, the anvil's song a balm against the ache in his chest. Aphrodite does not linger in the quiet halls of their home. She slips through the dawn mist like a wisp of sea foam, her feet light on the marble steps. She has no words for the man she betrayed, no excuses that could ease the weight of her choices. Instead, she lets the soft rush of the sea breeze carry her away from the forge's glow. Her eyes turn to the horizon where the sun breaks free of the waves. You watch her go, her golden hair shimmering in the pale light, and you wonder what it is that drives her, guilt or longing, or simply the restless tides of a heart that was never meant to be still. She's a goddess of desire, and the world is full of hearts that beat for her laughter, her touch. But in the hush of dawn, even the goddess of love must face the quiet truth that beauty can be a burden, and longing is a tide that never truly recedes. Hephaestus does not call her back. He has learned that the forge can shape metal, not hearts, and that no net of gold can bind the sea. He turns instead to his work, each blow of the hammer a prayer for something more enduring than even the laughter of the gods. A quirky detail, some ancient stories claim that Hephaestus, after the net scandal, took to crafting tiny silver birds that would sing as they perched on the rafters of the forge. They say their sweet notes were his way of filling the silence Aphrodite left behind, a song of creation, to drown out the quiet of her absence. Historians still debate whether these birds were real or just a poetic embellishment, but you can almost hear their song now, a soft lilting melody that weaves through the quiet forge and soothes the ache of old wounds. It's a melody that speaks of hope, of the beauty that can grow even from the ashes of heartbreak. Aphrodite, for her part, finds solace in the sea. She wades into the gentle surf, the salt water cooling the sting of shame on her skin. She's the daughter of the waves, and in their endless rhythm she finds a comfort no mortal or god can offer. The sea does not ask for fidelity. It does not judge. It simply cradles her in its cool embrace, a reminder that some things can be washed clean at least for a moment. But the echoes of the forge follow her, the memory of Hephaestus's steady gaze and the hush of his forge. She wears the jewellery he made for her, still each piece a promise and a question. She does not know what she feels when she touches the delicate links of a necklace shaped like the flame, whether it is guilt or gratitude or some quiet longing she can't quite name. You see the way her fingers linger on the curve of a bracelet, the way her breath catches as she remembers the weight of Hephaestus's hands. There is no easy answer in her heart, no neat resolution to the tangled threads of desire and devotion. But in the hush of the dawn-lit waves, she lets herself feel it, all the ache of betrayal, the warmth of the forge's glow, the endless tide of wanting. Historians still debate whether this moment was the beginning of the end for their marriage, or simply another chapter in a love story that was never meant to be easy. Some say Aphrodite returned to Hephaestus in the quiet hours, her laughter softer, her gaze more thoughtful. Others claim she drifted further away, her heart always pulled by the roar of the waves and the call of the war god who would not be denied. But here in the soft hush of dawn you see something more than history's cold certainty. You see the fragile grace of a goddess caught between two worlds, the quiet dignity of a god who will not let even the sharpest heartbreak dull the glow of his forge. You see the way they each carry the weight of that night in the golden net, the knowledge that love is not always gentle, that even the most beautiful hearts can be tangled in their own desires. And as you drift back into the warmth of the forge, you feel the hush of the anvil, the soft breath of the coals. You carry the memory of Aphrodite's laughter, the bright burn of Hephaestus's forge, the quiet promise that even in a world of gods and monsters, there is beauty in the act of creation itself. The forge glows on, the tide sighs and retreats, and you standing in the quiet spaces between their hearts, carry the story forward, each word a spark, each breath a prayer that even the most tangled hearts can find a kind of peace. The days pass and the hush of the forge settles back into its old rhythm, the quiet song of creation filling the air. You watch Hephaestus move through the shadows, each step deliberate, each breath a measured promise. The betrayal has been laid bare, the laughter of the gods has faded, and now in the soft glow of the embers he finds his peace in the steady heartbeat of his work. There is a quiet dignity in the way he shapes the molten metal, the hiss of steam and the clang of hammer blows, weaving together a song of resolve. You can almost hear the thoughts that murmur beneath his calm exterior, a mantra of patience, of strength, of the simple truth that creation endures even when the heart falters. Aphrodite drifts through the halls of Olympus like a soft sigh, her laughter muted, her gaze distant. She wears the jewellery Hephaestus made for her rings, that catch the light like captured starlight earrings, that shimmer with the pale glow of the moon. They're not just ornaments now, they're reminders, each delicate curve and careful etching, a testament to the devotion she once took for granted. You see her pause in the doorway of the forge, her eyes catching the flicker of the coals. She does not speak, she only watches, her fingers tangled in the folds of her sea silk robe. There is a softness in her gaze now, a quiet ache that even she cannot hide. She knows the price of her choices, the weight of the golden net that still glimmers in the corners of her memory. A quirky tidbit in some lesser-known tales, it was said that Hephaestus once crafted a delicate perfume for Aphrodite, blending the scent of rose petals with the faint tang of iron and the soft smoke of the forge. A scent that was hers and his, a quiet alchemy of love and labour. Historians still argue whether this perfume was real or simply another layer of myth, but you can almost smell it in the warm air, a blend of longing and quiet pride. Hephaestus does not turn away when he sees her. He meets her gaze with a calm that glows brighter than the forge's embers, his eyes steady, his shoulders unbowed. He does not ask for her love, does not beg for her return. He has learned that some hearts cannot be forged to fit another's shape. And yet there is no bitterness in his voice when he finally speaks, a soft murmur, a simple question that carries the weight of everything that has passed between them. "Do you see me now?" he asks, his voice low and steady. Aphrodite does not answer, but in the hush of the forge you see her eyes soften. She steps closer, her bare feet whispering across the stone floor, and for a moment the gulf between them feels as thin as a breath. She touches the edge of his workbench, her fingers tracing the curve of a new creation, an ewer of hammered gold, its surface alive with scenes of sea and flame. Historians still debate whether this was the moment Aphrodite's heart began to soften, or if it was only a flicker of pity in the endless dance of desire. But you feel the hush that settles between them, a quiet that speaks of something deeper than words. She sees him now, not just the god of the forge, not just the husband she once scorned, but the quiet strength that hums in every breath he takes. Hephaestus does not need her answer. He turns back to his work, the hammer's steady rhythm a comfort, a promise that even the sharpest heartbreak cannot snuff out the glow of creation. And Aphrodite, for all her restless sighs and moonlit dreams, lingers in the doorway a moment longer, long enough to watch the glow of the forge dance in the depths of his eyes. You watch them, the goddess of love and the god of creation, and you feel the quiet truth of their bond, a marriage of sparks and longing, of beauty and craft. A marriage that may never be warm with passion, but that still holds a flicker of something tender in the hush of the forge. Ares, god of war, is a shadow at the edge of the story now. His laughter echoes in distant battlefields, his name whispered in the clash of spears and the roar of conquest. But here in the quiet forge he is only an echo, a reminder of a choice that will always leave its mark but can never drown out the quiet song of creation. As you drift back from the glow of the forge, you carry with you the soft weight of their story. You feel the ache in Hephaestus' shoulders, the quiet dignity in his gaze. You feel the longing in Aphrodite's sigh, the gentle hush of her fingers on the workbench, and in that fragile quiet you hear the promise of the forge, a vow that no betrayal can break, no laughter can diminish. The forge glows on. The goddess of love lingers in the doorway, and you caught between their hearts carry the quiet hope that even in the hush of heartbreak, something beautiful can still be forged. The tale of Aphrodite and Hephaestus is more than a single night of betrayal. It is a story that echoes through centuries, retold in hushed whispers and bright images on the walls of temples and in the flicker of candles on lovers' altars. You feel those echoes as you drift deeper into the hush of the forge, the quiet sigh of creation weaving through every moment. You see it in the way poets shape their verses, the way they capture the hush of longing in the soft curve of a line or the bright spark of desire in a single word. They tell of the goddess of beauty caught between the quiet devotion of the forge and the wild embrace of the battlefield. They sing of Hephaestus, the god who learned that even the strongest hands cannot shape a heart that will not be still. Historians still argue over the meanings of these tales, whether they are lessons in love's fickleness or in the power of creation to outlast even the laughter of the gods. Some say the story of the golden net is a warning that desire, when left untamed, can snare even the most divine hearts. Others claim it is a testament to the power of quiet endurance, the way a single spark tended with care can outshine even the most dazzling flame. You feel these truths woven together as you wander the halls of memory, each step a brush against the marble of Olympus, each breath a whisper of old secrets. The mortals who once told these tales saw in them a reflection of their own hearts, the way love can be both a balm and a blade, the way longing can be a forge as hot and bright as Hephaestus' anvil. In the quiet corners of mortal life, the story of Hephaestus and Aphrodite became a tapestry of tiny details, a pattern of flickering candle flames and soft sighs. Lovers traced the shapes of golden bracelets on their skin, each delicate link a reminder of the price of passion. Craftsmen whispered prayers to Hephaestus before they bent the metal to their will, hoping that his steady hand would bless their own. A quirky tidbit in the workshops of ancient Athens, some blacksmiths would hang tiny effigies of Aphrodite and Hephaestus above their forges, a charm against the burn of jealousy and the ache of love left unspoken. They believed that in the hush of the forge, the goddess of beauty and the god of creation still watched their story, a lesson in patience and pride. You wonder what it would feel like to craft your own heart in the glow of that forge, to take the raw metal of longing and shape it into something that could hold the weight of another's breath. You watch Hephaestus at his work, the soft glow of the coals painting his skin in flickering gold, and you know that even in the quiet of heartbreak there is a power in the simple act of creation. Aphrodite drifts through these stories like a moonlit wave, her laughter soft and distant, her sighs woven into the hush of the forge. She's a goddess of contradictions, of beauty and heartbreak, of longing and laughter that can never quite drown out the hush of her own heart. And yet for all her wandering she returns to the glow of the forge, her fingers tracing the curve of Hephaestus's work, as if she might find in its strength the quiet she cannot name. Historians still debate whether Aphrodite ever truly loved Hephaestus, or if she only lingered in the warmth of his forge because it offered her a solace she could not find in the bright clamour of Olympus. But you see the truth in the hush of the embers that even the goddess of love can find a kind of peace in the patient glow of a craftsman's hands. The story of the golden net of the goddess and the smith has been retold 1,000 times, each telling a different shape, each shape a different truth. Some say it is a tale of shame, others of quiet redemption. But here in the soft hush of the forge you see it as something more a reminder that even the most tangled hearts can still create something beautiful, even if they can never quite hold it for themselves. As you drift away from the forge's glow, you carry the weight of that lesson like a spark in your own chest. You feel the gentle rhythm of Hephaestus's hammer, the soft sigh of Aphrodite's laughter, and you know that even in the hush of heartbreak there is a beauty in the act of trying. The forge glows on, the stories echo in the quiet corners of your heart, and you standing between the laughter of the gods and the hush of the forge find a kind of comfort in the knowledge that even in the echoes of betrayal there is a song of creation that will not be silenced. The forge glows steady, a warm pulse in the heart of Olympus, even as the stories of betrayal and passion swirl like restless tides. Hephaestus does not stop his work. He cannot. Creation is his breath, his answer to the world's laughter and to the hush of his own quiet heart. You stand beside him in the flicker of the coals, the song of the anvil a soft lullaby that soothes the ache of memory. He crafts wonders in the hush of the forge shields that could turn back the fury of Ares' spear blades, that sing with an edge sharper than the laughter of the gods, delicate jewellery that glimmers like captured starlight. Each piece is a promise, each hammer strike a vow. I am still here, I am still creating. You watch him work his broad shoulders outlined in the glow, his breath steady, even when the ache of betrayal hums in the quiet spaces between each stroke. There is no bitterness in his hands, only the surety of a craftsman who knows that even in the ruins of the heart there is always something worth shaping. Aphrodite meanwhile drifts at the edge of this quiet world, her laughter softer now, her steps slower. She lingers in the doorway of the forge, the scent of sea air clinging to her skin. She wears the bracelets he made for her, still each link a delicate chain of fire and devotion, each curve a question she can't quite answer. You see the way her eyes soften when she watches him, the quiet sigh of her breath when the sparks flare in the darkness. She does not reach for him, not yet, but in the hush of her gaze you see a flicker of something real, a longing for the steadiness she has always fled, a tenderness that she cannot name. A quirky detail the old poets claimed that sometimes when Hephaestus was deep in his work, tiny golden bees would emerge from the forge's embers, their wings humming with a music that soothed the goddess of love's restless heart. Whether real or just a shimmer of myth, you can almost hear their sweet murmur in the quiet of the forge, a promise that even the smallest sparks can become something gentle. Historians still argue whether Aphrodite's presence in the forge was love or habit, devotion or guilt. But here in the soft glow of creation, you see something more fragile and more real than any scholar's scroll, the hush of two hearts learning to live in the quiet spaces of each other's shadows. Hephaestus does not ask for her laughter. He does not demand her heart. He only works each breath a prayer, each hammer stroke a testament to the simple, stubborn act of hope. He knows that beauty can be as fleeting as a spark, but creation endures, and Aphrodite, for all her wanderings, finds a kind of peace in the warmth of the forge. She slips through the shadows like a sigh, her fingers brushing the cool metal of his tools, her gaze lingering on the shapes he coaxes from the fire. There is no war here, no clash of desire and conquest, only the hush of creation, the soft promise of something that does not need to be claimed to be beautiful. You wonder what it would feel like to stand in that hush, to let the quiet of the forge wrap around your restless heart. To know that even if you cannot hold the one you love, you can still shape something that will outlast the laughter of the gods. Hephaestus understands that truth. In the glow of the forge he shapes not just the gifts of the gods, but the quiet dignity of his own heart. He does not need Aphrodite's love to create something beautiful. He does not need her laughter to know that his hands can still coax wonder from the raw bones of the world. And in that simple, steady work there is a kind of triumph, a kind of peace. Aphrodite watches him, her eyes soft and uncertain, and you see the way her fingers curl around the edge of the door. She may never love him as he dreams, but in the hush of the forge she learns to respect the quiet power of his creation, the way he shapes the world not with war's roar but with the patient breath of fire and iron. Historians still debate whether this was a marriage of convenience or a love story in slow motion. But you standing in the hush of the forge's glow see a different kind of love taking shape, one forged not from passion's fury, but from the quiet promise of creation. The forge glows on. The golden bees sing in the hush of the embers, and you heart humming with the warmth of the forge and the soft ache of longing know that even in the quiet spaces of heartbreak, something bright and beautiful can still be born. Aphrodite stands in the doorway of the forge, the scent of roses and sea spray clinging to her hair, the hush of her breath mingling with the soft song of the anvil. You watch her as she lingers, caught between the pull of the sea's wild tide and the warm glow of the forge's steady light. She has wandered far in her heart, but something in the quiet strength of Hephaestus's hands keeps her coming back like a wave that can't help but return to the shore. Hephaestus does not look up as she enters. His focus is total, the steady rhythm of his hammer heartbeat that fills the hush of the forge. Each blow shapes more than just the metal. It shapes the quiet hope that even in a world of betrayal and laughter, creation can be its own answer. Aphrodite watches him, her eyes tracing the curve of his shoulders, the surety of his movements. She sees the way he leans into each strike, the way the firelight turns the sweat on his brow to a crown of embers. There is no plea in his gaze, no demand in his silence, only the simple, steady glow of devotion that needs no words to be understood. She moves closer, her bare feet whispering across the cool stone, and you feel the hush deepen, the world narrowing to the quiet breath of the forge. She does not speak, but she reaches out her fingertips, brushing the curve of a newly shaped chalice, the metal still warm from the breath of the flames. It is a small thing, a simple thing, but in the softness of that touch you see a question taking shape. Can something so carefully forged ever be enough to hold a heart that was born of the sea? A quirky detail, some ancient stories claimed that Hephaestus would forge tiny golden dolphins for Aphrodite, a nod to her birth from the sea. Historians still argue whether these were real gifts or just bright fables, but you can almost see their delicate forms swimming in the shadows of the forge, each one a promise shaped in fire. Aphrodite's hand lingers on the chalice, her breath catching in the hush. She does not know how to give her heart in the quiet way Hephaestus does, but she begins to understand that there is a kind of love in the simple act of returning again and again to the same quiet warmth. Hephaestus lifts his head at last, his eyes meeting hers across the glow of the forge. There is no anger there, no bitterness, only the soft, steady light of a man who has learned that the act of creation is its own answer to the world's laughter. He does not reach for her. He does not beg. He only nods his breath, steady his hands, sure. Historians still debate whether Aphrodite ever truly understood the quiet strength of the forge, or if she always remained a creature of the waves, restless, drifting caught in the undertow of her own desires. But in the hush of that moment, you see something that cannot be argued away, the way her gaze softens, the way her fingers curl around the edge of the workbench, the way she stands just a breath closer to the man she's wounded. Ares, for all his thunder and fury, as far away now, his laughter lost in the clash of war. Here in the hush of the forge there is no battle, no conquest, only the quiet song of creation, and the soft ache of hearts that can never fully meet, but cannot fully turn away. You wonder what it must feel like to stand in that hush, to let the warmth of the forge ease the ache of your own restless heart. You wonder if Aphrodite feels it too, the slow, steady comfort of knowing that even if love cannot be forged to fit the shape of your longing, the act of creating, of simply being, can still be a kind of answer. Hephaestus knows this. You see it in the way he turns back to his work, the hush of the forge wrapping around him like a cloak. He does not need Aphrodite's love to know the worth of his hands, the power of his craft. He has learned that some things cannot be held, but they can still be honoured in the quiet spaces between breath and heartbeat. Aphrodite watches him for a long moment, her eyes soft with something that might be regret or understanding, or simply the hush of a heart learning how to listen. Then she turns her sea silk robe whispering across the stone as she slips back into the dawn light, leaving behind the quiet promise of her touch on the chalice. The forge glows on its light, steady and sure. Hephaestus does not falter. The song of the hammer rises once more, each stroke a testament to the truth he carries in the hush of his own heart, that even the most fleeting beauty can be honoured, that even the most restless heart can find a kind of home in the act of creation. And you, standing in the quiet of the forge, carry that truth with you, like a spark, a gentle reminder that even in the spaces where love cannot fully bloom, there is still the soft glow of the forge, the hush of creation, and the quiet promise of a heart that refuses to stop shaping wonder from the raw edges of the world. The forge glows on a steady heartbeat in the quiet corners of Olympus. You feel its warmth in your bones, the soft glow of creation, wrapping around you like a promise. Hephaestus works in that hush, his hammer's rhythm as constant as the tide that called Aphrodite home. He does not falter, does not pause to wonder where she wanders now. He has learned that the act of shaping is its own answer, its own kind of prayer. Aphrodite, for all her drifting sighs, still finds herself drawn back to the glow of the forge. She slips through the door as the sun sets the hush of twilight wrapping around her like a veil. She wears the jewellery he made for her, each piece a small promise, a question she has yet to answer. She stands at the edge of the forge's light, her bare feet silent on the cool stone, and she watches the man who shapes the world from fire and quiet hope. They speak little in those moments, words catching in the hush, like sparks that flare and fade. Hephaestus does not ask where she's been. He does not weigh her silences against the roar of the forge. He only works his breath, steady his hands, sure. And Aphrodite, for all her restless heart, lingers in the warmth of that quiet devotion. You see the way her eyes soften when she watches him, the way her fingers drift across the curve of a new creation, a bowl of hammered bronze, its surface alive with scenes of sea and flame. There is no laughter in her gaze, no teasing smile, only the hush of understanding, the quiet ache of something that might have been or might yet be. A quirky detail in some of the oldest temples of Hephaestus. Tiny offerings of rose petals and myrtle were left beside the anvil gifts from mortal women who believed that the goddess of love herself had once found comfort in the hush of the forge. Historians still debate whether these offerings were for Aphrodite or for the quiet strength of the craftsman who shaped her gifts. You wonder what Aphrodite sees in the forge's glow, the gentle hush of creation, the quiet promise of hands that shape and hold even when the heart cannot. She stands close enough to feel the warmth on her skin, close enough that the steady rhythm of the hammer seems to echo in her own breath. Hephaestus does not look up as he works. He knows she is there, her presence a soft weight in the hush. But he does not ask for her laughter, does not beg for her touch. He has learned that some hearts cannot be claimed, only honoured in the glow of creation. Historians still argue whether their marriage endured out of duty, or a quiet kind of loyalty, a pact of power rather than passion. But here in the hush of the forge you see something more, a marriage of sparks and silence of beauty, that does not ask to be held, but only to be seen, if only for a moment. Ares, the god of war, is a shadow in the distance now. His roar of conquest fades in the hush of the forge, leaving only the soft glow of the embers and the steady rhythm of creation. Aphrodite's laughter is softer now, her sighs quieter, as she stands in the doorway of the forge and watches the man she could never truly hold. And Hephaestus. He does not need to hold her. He has the glow of the forge, the soft hush of metal yielding to his hands, the quiet power of shaping something that will outlast even the laughter of the gods. Each breath he draws is a testament to the truth he has learned, that even when love drifts like the tide, the act of creation can be its own kind of triumph. You stand with them in the hush, the glow of the forge painting your skin in gold and shadow. You feel the quiet ache of hearts that never quite met the soft promise of creation, that glows even in the spaces where love cannot bloom. You wonder if Aphrodite feels it too, the comfort of knowing that even in the hush of heartbreak, something beautiful can still be shaped from the glow of the forge. Hephaestus lifts his head. At last, his gaze steady, his breath calm. He sees her there in the hush of twilight, and though he says nothing, you feel the quiet truth of his heart, that even if her laughter never again fills these halls, he will still shape wonders in the hush of the forge. He will still honour the spark she once stirred in him, even if she is forever the tide that slips through his fingers. And you, standing in the quiet warmth of their fragile peace, carry that truth with you, that love is not always a matter of holding tight, that sometimes the greatest act of devotion is simply to keep creating, even when the heart is a forge that can never quite be filled. The forge glows on. Aphrodite lingers a breath longer, her gaze soft as the hush of twilight. And you, caught between the quiet strength of Hephaestus's hands and the gentle ache of the goddess's sigh, find a kind of peace in the simple glow of creation. The hush of the forge lingers like a breath held too long, each spark a silent prayer in the warm darkness. Hephaestus works on each blow of his hammer a heartbeat that will not be silenced by the soft laughter of the gods or the quiet sigh of the goddess who drifts in and out like the tide. You watch him, his shoulders steady beneath the weight of his craft, the glow of the forge painting his skin in gold and bronze. Aphrodite does not always come now. She wanders the edges of Olympus, her laughter echoing through the marble halls and the moonlit groves. She's the goddess of desire, and the world is full of hearts that ache for her smile, her touch. But even as she slips through the bright corridors of the gods, her thoughts drift back to the quiet glow of the forge, to the hush that holds a kind of peace she cannot find in the roar of mortal longing. You see her there sometimes, her fingers brushing the jewellery he shaped for her rings, that gleam like captured dawnlight earrings that echo the hush of the forger's song. She wears them not as trophies but as talismans, each piece a reminder of the quiet devotion she cannot name. Historians still argue whether Aphrodite ever truly belonged to Hephaestus, or if she was always a wanderer at heart, her laughter slipping through his fingers like water. Some say she was a goddess who could never be contained, others that she was a woman who saw in the steady glow of the forge a love too quiet for Olympus to understand. But you see the truth in the hush of her breath. When she returns, she does not stay, but she does not forget. A quirky detail, some ancient poets wrote, that Aphrodite would leave tiny offerings of myrtle and rose petals at the forge's threshold, a quiet apology woven in the soft perfume of the sea. Whether real, or just the bright echo of a poet's dream, you can almost smell the sweetness of those flowers, now a fragile thread of connection in the hush of the forge. Hephaestus does not ask for her to stay. He has learned that some hearts cannot be shaped no matter how patient the craftsman. Instead, he turns back to his work, each stroke of the hammer a testament to the power of quiet creation. The forge is his sanctuary, his answer to the laughter of the gods and the restless sigh of the sea. Here in the hush of glowing embers and the soft breath of molten metal, he finds a peace that no betrayal can take away. You watch him shape new wonders, breastplates that shimmer like moonlight on the waves, helmets that gleam with the promise of unbroken dawn, tiny cups carved with the dancing forms of dolphins and sea nymphs. Each piece is a prayer to the beauty he sees in the world, a promise that even in the hush of heartbreak creation endures. Aphrodite, when she returns, stands in the doorway and watches. She does not speak, does not reach for the warmth of his hand, but you see the softness in her gaze, the way her breath hitches in the quiet glow of the forge. She knows as you do that there is something here she cannot name, something that hums in the hush, that flickers like a spark just beyond her reach. Hephaestus lifts his head and meets her gaze, his eyes steady, his shoulders unbowed. He does not smile, but there is a gentleness in his breath, a quiet understanding that needs no words. He knows she will leave again, that her laughter will slip through his fingers like the tide. But he also knows that the forge glows on, that creation is its own kind of devotion, its own quiet triumph. You stand in the hush of the forge and feel the soft ache of their hearts, the gentle weight of love that is both too much and never enough. You wonder if that is what it means to be divine, to hold beauty in your hands, even when it cannot be yours to keep. Historians still debate whether Hephaestus and Aphrodite ever found a balance between the hush of the forge and the roar of the sea. But you see the quiet truth in the glow of the embers that, even if the goddess of love can never stay, the act of creation is a kind of homecoming all its own. As the night deepens and the stars bloom in the sky, you feel the hush settle over you like a cloak. You carry the weight of their story in your bones, the quiet strength of the forge, the restless sigh of the sea, the soft ache of a love that flickers in the hush of dawn. And in that hush you find your own quiet peace, the gentle glow of a truth that will not fade, that even in a world of gods and laughter, the act of creation is a promise that endures. The hush of the forge seeps into your bones, a steady warmth that glows against the cool night air of Olympus. You stand at the edge of Hephaestus's domain, watching the steady dance of flame and shadow, and you feel the weight of the story that has burned itself into the walls of this quiet temple. Aphrodite, goddess of beauty and desire, lingers in your thoughts like the echo of a soft sigh. She drifts through the bright halls of Olympus, her laughter bright but fleeting, her smile a flicker of dawnlight that slips away before it can be caught. She is the sea's daughter, born of foam and longing, and even in the hush of the forge she's a tide that cannot be stilled. You see her in the quiet corners of the forge, her fingers brushing the delicate chains and rings, Hephaestus shaped for her, each link a soft question, each curve a quiet promise. She wears them still even as she drifts from one heart to another, her laughter weaving through the songs of poets and the dreams of mortal lovers. They are not just adornments, they are reminders of the quiet devotion she left behind in the hush of the forge. Hephaestus, for his part, does not chase her laughter or the flicker of her gaze. He stands steady at his anvil, each blow of the hammer a testament to the truth he has learned that love can be a tide that drifts and pulls, but creation endures. The forge glows on, and in its steady light he finds a peace that does not need her laughter to be complete. A quirky detail in some of the oldest myths, it was said that Aphrodite would sometimes pause at the threshold of the forge, her breath catching at the hush of the embers. She would not speak, but in the flicker of her gaze there was a softness, a flicker of something tender and fleeting, like the hush of the tide before it breaks. Historians still debate whether these fleeting returns meant anything at all, whether they were the last sigh of a love that had long since died, or the quiet murmur of a heart that had never truly left. But you see the quiet truth in the glow of the forge that even the goddess of love can be held, if only for a moment, in the warmth of creation. Hephaestus does not need her to stay. He has learned that the glow of the forge is its own kind of love, a devotion that does not waver, that does not beg for laughter or sighs. Each stroke of the hammer shapes not just metal, but the quiet strength of a heart that will not be silenced by the laughter of the gods or the soft betrayal of a drifting tide. And Aphrodite, for all her wandering, seems to understand this too. She may never belong to Hephaestus, may never let the hush of the forge still the restless beat of her heart. But she carries his creations with her, each delicate chain and gleaming gem, a piece of the quiet devotion she could never fully name. You wonder if that is enough, if the quiet weight of a heart that will not stop creating can be a balm for the restless ache of longing. You see it in the hush of the forge, in the steady breath of Hephaestus as he shapes wonders from the bones of the world. You see it in the soft ache of Aphrodite's gaze when she stands at the doorway, her laughter caught in her throat, her breath a quiet question. Ares's roar is far away now, the clash of conquest swallowed by the hush of the forge. Here there is only the steady glow of the coals, the soft song of creation, and the quiet ache of hearts that may never meet but can still honour each other in the hush. Historians still argue whether their story is a tragedy or a testament to the power of quiet devotion. But you, standing in the warmth of the forge, see something deeper, a love that is not about claiming or conquering, but about the simple, stubborn act of creating, of shaping something beautiful from the raw bones of longing, even when the laughter of the gods would drown out the hush of your own heart. As you drift back from the glow of the forge, you carry that quiet truth with you, that even the most restless hearts can find a kind of home in the act of creation, that even the goddess of desire can pause to watch the glow of the forge and remember the quiet devotion of the craftsman who shaped her gifts. The forge glows on, the tide sighs and retreats, and you, standing in the hush of their story, find a kind of peace in the soft weight of that truth, that even in the echoes of longing there is a promise that endures. The forge's glow flickers soft and low, the embers a gentle hush that wraps around you like a final lullaby. You stand with Hephaestus one last time, watching the steady rhythm of his hands, the quiet devotion in every breath. The laughter of the gods is a distant echo now, the roar of Ares's conquest just a memory carried on the sigh of the wind. Here in the hush of the forge there is only the quiet glow of creation, a promise that hums beneath the silence warm and bright. Aphrodite drifts in the corners of your mind, her laughter a shimmer of sea foam and moonlight. She has wandered far and wide, her heart a restless tide that cannot be held. And yet even she returns to the glow of the forge, if only for a moment, if only to watch the quiet strength of the man she once took for granted. She wears his gifts still, each delicate curve a silent reminder of the devotion she could never claim as her own. Historians still debate whether the story of Hephaestus and Aphrodite is a tragedy or a testament to the quiet endurance of the heart. Some say it is a lesson in the cruelty of the gods, others a reminder that love is as fragile as it is fierce. But here in the glow of the forge you see something simpler, something softer, a marriage of sparks and silence of devotion that does not demand to be held but only to be honoured. Aphrodite stands in the doorway one last time, her breath caught in the hush of the forge. She does not speak, but her gaze is soft, a question she will never voice. Hephaestus does not reach for her. He has learned that some hearts cannot be shaped to fit the quiet glow of devotion. Instead, he turns back to his work, the anvil's song, a soft promise that echoes in the hush. A quirky detail in some of the oldest shrines to Hephaestus, mortal craftsman, would leave tiny offerings of salt and honey at the base of the anvil, a prayer for patience and a quiet blessing for the hands that shape the world. You wonder if Aphrodite, for all her wandering, felt the sweetness of those offerings in the hush of the forge, a promise that even the softest hearts can find a home in the steady glow of creation. Hephaestus works on the hush of the forge, wrapping around him like a mantle of quiet strength. Each breath he draws is a testament to the truth he has forged in the glow of the embers, that even when love drifts like the tide, the act of creation is a promise that endures. He shapes the world in the hush of the forge, each stroke of the hammer a quiet vow that echoes long after the laughter of the gods has faded. Aphrodite turns away at last, her footsteps soft as sea foam on the marble floor. She will not stay. She is the tide, the goddess of longing, and her laughter belongs to the world beyond the hush. But she pauses at the threshold, her fingers lingering on the edge of the doorway. And in that hush you feel the soft weight of her heart, a whisper of regret, or maybe just a quiet thank you for the devotion she could never claim. You watch Hephaestus lift his hammer one final time, the forger's glow catching the sweat on his brow, the quiet hum of creation filling the air. He does not look back. He does not need to. The forge glows on, and in its warmth he has found a kind of peace that no betrayal can take away. You stand in the hush of the forge and feel the quiet promise that glows in every breath, that even in a world of gods and laughter, the act of creation is a light that will not be snuffed out. You feel the weight of the story in your bones, the gentle ache of love that could not be claimed, the quiet triumph of a heart that will not stop shaping beauty from the bones of the world. And as the hush deepens, you know that the forge glows on its light, a promise that endures long after the laughter of the gods has faded. The glow of the forge begins to fade now, the hush settling around you like a gentle blanket. You let the rhythm of the hammer, the soft sigh of the embers slow your own breath, each exhale a quiet promise of rest. The laughter of the gods is far away, the roar of war and the bright sigh of the sea, nothing but a soft echo in the distance. Here in the hush of the forge there is only the warmth of the coals and the gentle hum of creation. You let it wrap around you, the soft glow easing the weight of your thoughts, the steady breath of the forge a comfort against the ache of your own restless heart. You feel the hush slip into your bones, a quiet balm for the ache of longing and the gentle ache of knowing. The story of Hephaestus and Aphrodite drifts around you, a lullaby of devotion and quiet endurance of love that flickers in the hush, even when it cannot be claimed. You let the warmth of the forge hold you, the glow a soft reminder that even in the darkness there is a promise that endures. The forge glows on its light steady and sure. You breathe in the hush, let it settle around you like the soft weight of a warm blanket. Let your thoughts drift and slow, the quiet hum of the forge easing you into the soft dark of sleep. You carry the story with you, a spark of warmth in the hush of your own heart.